One, two, one, two. Take a handful of sugar, a handful of salt. God made these women, I love them all. I ain't lying. I ain't lying. I ain't lying to you. This time I'm telling the truth. Now God made these women, made them kind of funny. You kiss them on the lips, they taste sweeter than honey. I ain't lying. I ain't lying. I ain't lying to you. This time I'm telling the truth. Drink your wine when your baby leaves you. Don't you mess with mine. I ain't lying. I ain't lying. I ain't lying to you. This time I'm telling the truth. I ain't lying. I ain't lying. drink your whiskey, drink your wine. When your baby leaves you, don't you mess with mine. I ain't lying. I ain't lying. I ain't lying to you. This time I'm telling the truth.
Hi, I'm George.
And I'm Dave.
And we're Guitar Guys, and we know you're a guitar guy too. Today we have a special episode. We're going to talk about some really cool guitars, and we're going to have you meet the guy who makes them and learn about them. And you were just treated to a song that this fella wrote and performed on, and we'll bring him up now. His name's Greg McCullough, and he is from Connecticut.
Greg, welcome.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you so much for coming here and being on the show. And I can't thank you enough for this beautiful instrument. I cherish it. And I want you to be able to tell people that don't know about Blue Monkey guitars, you know, how you do this magic. And Greg brought a few other Blue Monkeys with him today. And we'll talk about all of them, but we'll start with this one. And tell us why you choose what you choose and
okay.
How you
First of all, the reason that this guitar exists at all is because in meeting Dave about 3 years ago at a jam down here, I had a ball. And I guess I hadn't had a ball playing in quite a while. And Dave just completely relit my enthusiasm, my passion for playing, and one of the ways that I express that, because I'm an artist and I think visually, and guitars are so cool anyway, that when I went home to Connecticut for the summer, I knew that one of the things that I really wanted to do was make Dave a guitar. And I wanted it to be a really unique, killer instrument.
It is killer, and it's killer, and thank you so much. It's lightweight, which to me is great because I play so many 4-hour gigs.
Yep.
I believe it's chambered, right?
Yes.
Tell us about
the weight of an instrument is important to me because I'm old and I don't like carrying heavy stuff anymore. So I just naturally gravitate towards lighter weight. And I really should say at the start of this, I use all Warmoth parts. I can't say enough good stuff about Warmoth. They build the bodies and the necks. I custom order the necks exactly the way I want them. They'll give me exactly the wood combination of bodies that I want. They will seek out extra light pieces for the body if I request that. This was chosen for sound and for the grain on top. This guitar the main body is chambered mahogany, extra light, and the top of this particular guitar is spruce, because I knew there was going to be a lot of detail work on here. And spruce I choose because it burns very easily, it's relatively soft, and the grain is quite uniform. Certainly on this piece, it's absolutely uniform. So it allows really fine detail without variation in the hardness of the grain to cause the burning tool to slide unexpectedly. They're all wood burned. I use a tool that's very similar to a soldering iron, but with custom tips that vary from a thick, like a fat pencil, to a scalpel, depending on the degree of detail. I have been an illustrator for a long time, and I work with pen and ink, technical pens, very, very fine, hairline stuff.
That's what just blows me away. No matter how close I look at this thing or examine it, the detail is just amazing and so precise.
Well, I wanted for a long time to be able to reproduce, so to speak, my technique on paper to guitars. And you can't do that with a pen. And I don't remember exactly who or where I found out about wood burning, but somewhere along the line I did, probably online. And I looked into it and thought I'd give it a try. And it was like, boom, a whole new world opened up. And I haven't worked on paper in years. I make a lot of guitars because, as I say, as an artist, I think visually, and the stuff just never stops. It never stops. So
They're all different. All of the ones I've seen, every one of them is different, but they all look like you did them, and that's
cool.
what's amazing about them. You know, you definitely have a style that's just so unique and cool.
all right, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. So they're burned on bare wood, and then depending on what I choose to do, I add color with aniline dye and or permanent marker. I seal with shellac and then finish with either true oil or white bond polyester. My finishes, as far as I'm concerned, are the weakest link. I don't do spraying, I don't have a spray booth, I don't have all those facilities. But I've sort of become more comfortable with the idea that part of the character of Blue Monkey guitars is that the finish is obviously hand done. You're not going to get a glassy, Fender or Gibson type finish from me. But it's sort of become part of.
In something like
what
this, I kind of like that because it doesn't put that kind of glossy glare on it, where in certain lights you would almost lose the artwork.
Right.
You see the artwork no matter what angle it's at because it's not so shiny. Does that have anything to do with the necks you choose? Because I notice most of the guitars you've made do have unfinished
Well,
necks.
that's because if I get a finished neck from Ormouth, it's got a polyester finish on it, and I can't burn through it.
Okay.
It melts and fumes, and so
The exotic woods also look amazing, but I like.
Well, I usually choose woods that do not call for a finish, and then I burnish the back to smooth them out. I've become enamored with this dark Wenge is the wood. It's got a really cool grain. The contrast with the Blue Monkey is good.
Super cool.
Another one that's really good that has become available fairly recently is roasted maple, which turns the ordinarily white maple into a caramel brown, which also burns really well and does not need a finish.
I read that it makes the neck stronger as well.
Right. The roasting process apparently does, yeah. It burns the resins out of the wood, lightens it just a touch, and I don't know if you ever get a chance to get a hold of a freshly roasted body or neck. Take a whiff of it. It smells like maple syrup. But as much as I enjoy doing the graphics and making turning these things into unique visual pieces, it's just as important because it is a guitar and they're meant to be played. It's got to sound good too. For the most part, I use Seymour Duncan pickups, Godot hardware that's readily available, and that's about it.
You might not remember what model Duncans you put in this, but
Sure, I do.
I've never had good luck with a P90 in the neck. In other guitars, they've always sounded overly kind of muddy to me. And this one just had a top end to it that I couldn't believe. Now, I don't know if it was the pickup or if it was the spruce top. I couldn't.
A lot of it is the neck.
I couldn't. The neck, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't put my finger on it, but it just had such a nice top end that I haven't gotten out of other
I
P90
think
guitars.
the voice of a guitar comes more from the neck and the pickup than anything else. The body itself will have some effect, but not as much as the neck is my take on it. And this particular wood is very dense. It's bright but rich, and it works with every kind of pickup that I've ever used.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, here's
There's straight Seymour Duncan vintage P90s.
That's clean and it's sweet. It doesn't have. It's not overly mid-rangey.
I'm glad I didn't know how Dave feels about P90 pickups while I was making this.
Always loved it in the bridge because it's got that meaty,
Yeah.
fat bridge sound. I just
Yeah.
never had a lot of luck in the neck position.
Well.
But this guitar,
All right,
perfect.
cool. I can't say that I thought about it before I started working on that, but once I finished it, I thought, okay, that guitar is perfect to represent Dave's playing because it's all wings, it's all feathers, because his playing always takes flight, and there's a big opium poppy there because his playing is so hypnotic. So there you go. I don't know
Yeah,
if I ever
man.
mentioned that to you, but there it is.
Cool. I love it. It's the coolest. Thank you again.
Hey, my pleasure.
And how about this one here?
Well, this is mine, and this is a basswood top because, as similar with spruce, the grain is very minimal. The grain is consistent in density and hardness across the piece, which makes it very easy to do highly detailed work. I do a lot of stuff that is just dots with a very fine point. That's the way I do my shading, and I do a lot of like snake scales and feather filaments, and I do that with a tip that's like a scalpel. And this was the first one that I tried using paint on. This is a really cool paint that I don't think has been used on a guitar before. It's called milk paint. And my girl has used it to paint a couple of pieces of furniture, and it came out pretty well. So I thought I'd give it a try. And one of the things that sold me on it was the guy who I buy it from at a furniture store said it's very self-leveling, which means it doesn't call for a lot of treatment once it's on there. I can use a brush and brush it on, and it looks like hell. You can see brush strokes everywhere, and you come back to it a half an hour later, and it's all leveled itself out. So
Is it just the grain just soaking it up?
no, it's the paint itself. For somehow it just levels very well. And I've used it on a couple of guitars since then. This is finished the same way. It's finished with spray shellac and then wipe on poly. And depending on how much of a shine I want on it, determines how many coats of poly I will do.
Do you have a favorite of the Blue Monkeys that you've built?
It's usually the one that I just finished.
Because I notice you lean more towards things that are Gibson, even though they're Strats or Teles. You do a lot of things that are very Gibson-like, scale ends.
Like that, and this, I use a lot of, whether I'm building a Telecaster style or a Strat style, I very often will use a Gibson scale length.
Yeah.
Why? I don't know. I like the feel.
And flatter radiuses as well.
Well, the radius is a standard Warmoth radius. They use their necks use a
Compound?
unless otherwise requested. They use a compound radius from 10
That's your preferred finger.
Yeah.
How about frets?
Just because I've gotten used to it.
How about frets? Do you like stainless steel or do you?
I don't care about that.
No.
My theory on that is that if you have enough guitars, you're not going to wear out the frets on too many of them. Just keep grabbing another one.
That's a good theory. Why use stainless steel? Just buy 2 more guitars.
Hey, there you go.
I like that.
Yeah. remember that tip.
This sounds good. What do we have in here as far as pickups go?
The two single coil looking pickups are Seymour Duncan vintage rails. They are actually humbucking, but I guess the vintage designation means that they are supposed to sound like Strat pickups, and they're pretty close.
They do.
They're good.
Let's go in the notch position. This is middle and neck. Yeah. And how about the bridge pickup?
The bridge pickup is, if I remember correctly, a Duncan 59. Straight PA.
Wow, you got the trem kind of tight. You like it like that?
That's not adjustable. That is not your standard trim bridge.
Oh.
That is a Blade Runner trim. Actually, it is adjustable. The springs are adjustable, but it does not pivot on the screws. There is a thin steel.
Ah.
See that?
I see that. That's cool.
Yeah. Blade Runner is the name of that.
Stays in tune good?
No.
No. Okay.
No, it's not the trem. The tuning is all about what's happening
Right.
up here, you know?
With this reverse, does that cause more of a problem?
No. No, it's no more, no less. It's just,
No trees. You prefer that?
what I do is I put the thing together, string it up, play it. If it's not pinging, then it doesn't need it. Then the nut is cut correctly and it doesn't need string trees, is my experience. And I prefer not to use them if I don't have to. Plus with this,
I would just think it's less stuff to get caught up in. And
yeah.
Sounds great.
I love it. That's one of my favorites. That's a keeper for me.
Yeah.
That's my guitar.
And let's talk about this one.
This is obviously Tele style. The body is chambered alder on alder. And this particular piece of alder was a relatively non-visible grain, not a heavy grain pattern to it. And one of the things I love to do with guitars, and I've done it on a couple, or actually more than a couple, is create my own wood on the top. Like barn planks, you know, and add a little, rustic touches to it. And a lot of my stuff, not what I have here today necessarily, but a lot of my stuff and a lot of my artwork on paper is American Indian based.
Yeah.
I just feel attached to it. I love the beadwork. I love the use of animal parts, fur and feathers, and etc. And it's pretty simple. That's just the inspiration. And I've seen for years this engraved hardware from the El Dorado company in California, and I've never used it before, and I thought I would. And it's gorgeous.
It is. I've seen it as well in magazines and stuff. This is the first time I've seen it up close, and
It's really fun.
really awesome.
In fact, I don't really know if it works 100% on this guitar. It almost should have a bare canvas.
Right. Like your neck pickup's got that nice worn look, like the.
Yeah, and this almost calls for a featureless canvas, so that this is the focal point. But it's beautiful stuff. It's beautiful stuff. And there are a number of Tele Bridges available. This is the El Dorado's bridge. I think, George, actually you replaced the saddles on this, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's right.
But one of my preferred bridge for Telecasters is Joe Barton Bridge. They come with brass saddles that are compensated, and there's a little cutout here. That little lip is gone,
Right.
so that it doesn't interfere with your fingers, your picking, whatever. Just a small touch, but it's a well-built piece.
With a compensated saddle, you get
Yes.
it intonated the way you want it. It works for
Well,
you.
You know, I'll tell you the truth, and I went over this with George one day. I don't get insane about intonation. For good or ill, I just don't.
Yeah.
If the guitar stays in tune reasonably well, and it's in tune from a 12th fret to open string, that's okay with me. Because I do, you know, I'm a blues hacker, and I do a lot of bending, and that seems, you know, I'm not playing finicky chords way up here and
Right.
stuff that you know, my style doesn't call for
Yeah.
insane intonation. A basic setup works for me.
Now, I'm feeling more output from the neck pickup.
What I've used in that is that's a Duncan Antiquity humbucker, and the bridge pickup is a straight Duncan 52 Tele.
It's clear. Wow, awesome.
Well, as I say, as much as my initial approach is visual, my first choices are made with a well-playing, great-sounding guitar at the end of the deal. You know?
Yeah. It's cool because before I ever met you, I was putting guitars together and I was always using Warmoth parts myself. And so I was thrilled when I got that guitar from you to find out that you used, you know, the parts that I was buying because they're great parts.
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
You, lots of options. You can get exactly what you want.
Yeah. Their quality control is top of the line.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And they will work with you on the phone. You know, I've made a couple of mistakes in ordering that they thought was, and I wonder if he really means this. And they'll call me, say, you know, you ordered such and such. Is that what you meant to do? And
Yeah.
they've caught a couple of things that really would have not been good had it gone
yeah?
through like that. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like everything about this. I like the contours on it, the weight. Neck's a little chunky, which is real cool.
That's Warmoth's 59
59,
roundback.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's my favorite
That's
one.
my preference.
Yeah, it's my favorite. Awesome. Beautiful guitar.
All right. One of the things that I had not done was build basses, and why I don't know. Maybe I didn't know a bass player that I liked well enough, but there were a couple of guys who had been asking me for a couple of years to do a bass for them, and so I made one for a good friend of mine in Connecticut who I've been in bands with, and it turned out really well. I enjoyed it. It's kind of like building a big guitar, and I built one for a good friend of mine down here named Gary Carter, who is up in Palm Bay and Melbourne area. He is the first guy that I ever played with down here at Earl's one night. The night Cheryl and I got here, we went. There was a jam at Earl's in those days on Thursday nights, and I went down there, and Gary was up on stage with a bunch of guys. And they were kind of playing country music, and I'm looking at these guys, and you know, a couple of them are playing in shorts, and I thought, that's not legitimate. And, and off on the side is a guy playing bass, and he had on a cowboy hat and a big mustache and jeans and cowboy boots, and I thought, I want to play with that guy. And at a break, I went up and I said, I'm going to play with you, and we did, and it was a lot of fun. That was my first playing experience in Florida, And so 2 years later, I made him a bass, and that's not this, but this is the most recent bass. This is one of my favorite, actually one of my favorite pieces of work. A lot of detail, a lot of craziness, kind of bizarre. And this is almost completed. It just needs to be wired and have strings put on it. It's alder. It's dyed uniformly with aniline dye. I mixed the colors myself. This is kind of became a little more olive than I had planned, but that's what alder does. Alder's a little darker wood. And I initially do it with a brush around the parts that I'm going to color so that they're not covered up. And then these are done, the brighter parts are done, in this instance, with permanent marker. And then it's sealed with shellac and urethane, like all of them. And you know, there's this endless debate about whether urethane finishes kill the vibration of the wood, and you know, lacquer doesn't do that. And well, I can assure you, as far as I'm concerned, that a couple of coats of wipe-on polyester, polyurethane, are so thin that it just gives it a bit of a sheen, and does not affect the...
I would agree.
You know.
As long as it's not too thick, I
Right.
think everything's cool.
Right.
Like my dad was painting his motorcycle frame one day with some like airplane paint, you know, and I come walking up with a Tele body. Hey, Dad, shoot this for me while you're doing that. And that destroyed the sound of that guitar.
Huh.
You know, it was super heavy duty, thick paint. It was like we just dipped the body in plastic,
Right.
you know.
Right.
Looked great, but didn't sound good.
I mean, again, there's an ongoing, endless debate with furious opinions on either side about the wood breathing and all that. And I think just as long as the finish, whatever the finish material is not too heavy, you're not gonna kill the
I would
guitar.
agree with that. And what kind of neck wood is this?
This is, if I can pronounce it correctly, this is Mboya.
Never heard of it.
It's an African hardwood with an ebony fingerboard.
Ebony seems to be a choice for you that I see on most of what you do.
It's because when it's dark, when it's black, the contrast is, I don't know, I find pleasing. Contrasts beautifully with any color, any design.
And I'm shocked on this guitar that there's no binding, because that's another thing that I know you like is bound fingerboards.
Right. As I said, that the tape just keeps rolling of ideas and combinations of wood and
Well,
color
even the ones I
pieces.
haven't seen in person that I've seen the photos, they're just all stunning. Do you have any idea of how many guitars you've done at this point?
Nope.
Fair enough.
No,
Fair enough.
series probably 30 or 40.
Yeah.
You know, I have built a lot of these things, and they just seem to keep rolling along. I finish one, and because I have not been working on paper for a while, I really enjoy having a project in front of me. You know, it's like the last thing in my head when I go to bed at night, and it's the first thing that is there when I wake up, like where I am in a project, and what to do with it, and how to refine it, and where do I go with it. But this is not a business. I have made a number of guitars for people whose playing I love, who have inspired me, and who are just fine people in my estimation. And I really find that extremely rewarding, to give somebody something that is a one-of-a-kind piece that they wouldn't get anywhere else, and have them enjoy it is really, as I say, is absolutely the ultimate reward for me. But again, this is not a business, and I can tell you pretty quickly that what I found as a commercial artist years ago was that when I was given an assignment and told what to do, it took all the fun out of it for me. It took all the inspiration, whatever. And for many years, I was a successful illustrator, and very, very fortunate in that I could let my imagination fly, do whatever I wanted, and surprise, surprise, people really liked it, and I've sold stuff all over the country, so I like to say I'm retired, which means I'm doing exactly what I did before I retired, but this is not a business. In other words, I don't take orders. If someone I haven't thought of previously or already asks me about a guitar, then I'll consider it. But again, I want to make it very clear that you can't email me or call me up or whatever and say, okay, I want to put an order in for such and such, because I just don't do it that way. I do not think that I want to live with having a back order of 8 guitars waiting to be done and with instructions for each one.
Yeah.
I just don't do it that
Yeah.
way, that's all.
That's cool. Billy Gibbons might see this and, email you.
Oh,
and
he's such a
might-
pain in the ass. I
might-
might consider, he just won't leave me alone.
I think he's going to want one.
I might be talked into that one. A good guitar, a cool guitar, deserves a cool strap, in my opinion. Why would you want a one-of-a-kind, beautiful instrument, be it a production guitar or a custom piece, with a silly little strap on it? I discovered these people somehow in my inbox a couple of years ago. The company is called Ethos, ETHOS. They're in Colorado, and they have a website with lots of different designs, and they're great to work with. Nice personal communication if you have any questions. Actually, they called me a few months ago, much to my surprise, and said that they had just bought a new batch of a leather that they hadn't used before, and they were making a couple of straps, and they wanted to send one to a good customer. And would I test a strap for them? And I did, and I told them what I thought, and anyway, that's really neither here nor there. I buy their stuff anyway, and they don't give me a discount. I don't get any deals. This is not, anything except that I think they're really cool. They make great stuff. Faux alligator, a lot of embroidery, overlapping. They're well padded. They're soft. They come in anything from 2.5 to 3.5 inch widths. 3 is standard. And that's all. I just wanted
Yeah, they're cool.
to say that they have become my strap of preference. I get into ordering the right strap for the right guitar.
Do they get up there in price? Do they have some really elaborate?
They have some. They're not so elaborate. They're mostly. There is some highly detailed stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't think they have anything that's over $300. They range from $70 to $250. Lots of stuff in between. Nice stuff.
Cool.
Nice, soft, comfortable leather. Doesn't need to be broken in. There's none of that. It doesn't stand up if you put it over here. It's good stuff.
Greg, thank you so much again for coming in.
My pleasure. Thanks for having
So
me.
awesome playing with you, jamming with you, talking guitar. And thank you for watching another episode of Guitar Guys. We'll see you next time.
been walking such a hard road, filled with heartache and misery. Now I'm hoping for a better day and a better place for me to be. So I wish I was a catfish swimming in a deep blue sea. 'Cause if I was a catfish, all you pretty women be fishing after me, after me, after me. And I wish I was a chihuahua, sitting right there, baby, on your knee. 'Cause if I was a chihuahua, you'd be feeding every tatas to me, to me. To me. down to my baby's house, and I sat down on her steps, and she said, come on in now, baby. You know my husband, he just left. He just left.